Okay, Paula Peavy, Free Tibet. Ryan McNamara.
All right,
Artist.
Great. Thank you so much.
Wait, I didn't finish.
Oh, my gosh.
Dan Cameron.
Not an artist.
Not an artist. New Orleans.
Do you want to do why don't you do the intro about Kreemart?
No, you.
Okay, all right. I will do the introduction about Kreemart. Thank you all for coming. I'm here to talk about projects I've done with Raphael through Kreemart, which commissions artists to make desserts. So what I thought I would talk about is used as a launching point to talk about the performances I have done in a party context. I do performances in galleries and museums, but as a performance artist, you're asked a lot to do things for benefits and a lot of benefits, which I think is valid. I think it's an interesting way for people to see your work in sort of passing, but it has obviously very different, it has such a different feeling to it. And I'm someone who actually really likes a situation to sort of rub up against and sort of create something with. So rather than just the same white cube over and over again, a party gives you a context. So what I thought I would do is kind of go through some of the pieces that I've done that involve this, starting with the piece that we did on Tuesday here in Miami. So this was, Kreemart was asked to do the opening party for Art Basel. The thing about these situations is that, I started off doing performance, which at some point actually had a sort of anti-market stance. And the thing about my work increasingly is when I'm doing these parties, it's for invited guests to benefits or to to kind of VIP parties. And so that's sort of a problematic thing for me that, it limits the audience to sort of basically rich people, which it can be interesting, but it sort of is a problem that I'm sort of negotiating while I do these things. So for the Kreemart project, I worked with Raphael in making a 4 foot by, you can tell, huge cake that was of my Chase debit card. It was actually, my card with the numbers on it.
Who everybody photographed, and now they have your credit card?
Exactly. Well, yeah. So some of the ideas behind it were that, one, I have to admit, sort of uncomfortable in art fairs. I kind of follow the John Baldessari quote of an artist going to an art fair is like a kid walking on his parents having sex. They know it happens, but they don't necessarily want to see it. So I feel sort of implicated even sort of doing a party for this thing that I don't really think is the best way to see art. On top of that, another thing that I sort of feel implicated in is that I still bank with Chase Bank. And I've been for months and months saying I was going to join a credit union. And so there's these two systems that I sort of participate in out of convenience and all these things that I feel sort of so it's not just sort of pointing the finger, but I'm actually sort of, I'm hoping this might be kind of a goodbye to all that for my Chase account. I also thought, looking at the structure of Art Basel, it's one where all of these parties and all these events are really, they're highly sponsored. And as we know from every where we turn, UBS is the sponsor. So I kind of actually thought that it'd be kind of, almost this, I was talking at CalArts and they kept talking about my work as being subversive, and I said, well, no, I think it's more just sort of bratty. I thought, well, what would it be? How would you subvert this system? Like, oh, maybe you give away free sponsorship. So in a way, you walk into this party that's sponsored by UBS, and there's a giant Chase cake. This is another project I did with Kreemart called Pristine that was in a gallery called Haunch of Venison. And it was, again, very fancy party, people in really nice clothes. So for my piece, I just had this perfectly white, pristine cake in the gallery, perfectly lit. And then halfway through the party, I had these sort of revolutionaries come in, run through the crowd, screaming. So there was actually frightened people, and then they just attacked the cake with frosting. So the idea is that there's this kind of, these revolutionaries are going to come in, they're going to sort of, do something, and all they want to do is actually make your cake more delicious. So, all right. This actually, I think, speaks a lot to what I'm talking about with, the context changing a piece. So this is a piece I did called 433 at the Starlight Lounge. I was asked to be a part of a day of performance that was trying to raise awareness about the oldest gay club in Brooklyn closing that sort of no one knew about. So they asked me to do something. They asked a lot of other performers who have like a thing they do, like they sing songs, and I don't really have that. I also am not necessarily part of this community. It's definitely a community for people who live in the neighborhood. It's predominantly African American clientele, so I decided I would sort of have my own version of a memorial there. So while there's performances going in the back, I sort of took a cue from John Cage via Merce Cunningham, and based on the piece 433, where John Cage comes out, lifts, closes down, and then Merce Cunningham used that to be a memorial for John, who was his lover. So he would just have his dancers stay on stage for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. So throughout the event, I was in the bar taking bar poses for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. Sort of, sometimes looking out the window, sometimes a little more flirty. And then I was asked to do this at a benefit. Obviously a very, context-heavy piece. So what does that mean now all of a sudden to do for a gala? So I did basically the same exact performance, but changed it a lot. Changed the name from 433 at the Starlight Lounge to This Charming Man, which is this. So basically, I just would go up to people. This kind of guy was a lot more aggressive. He would, go into people's conversations and just stand there and hold the pose, and sort of, and people at first would just stop talking and look at me, and then they would continue. So one of my favorite things about doing this performance was that I wasn't human after a little bit, so I got to hear lots of gossip and fun things like that.
But what, you stood still?
I stood still, yeah. So and they, kind of had to sort of negotiate that.
Oh, that's Yvonne.
Yeah, so it was for our production fund. So this is actually something I did in Miami 2 years ago. This is the first kind of party event that I had done. This is this kind of persona. I say all he wants to do is be a good dancer on the dance floor, but he can't because he might be dead. So I was up against a pole the entire night. It's this event that Diana Picasso had. And I'm up against the pole, and I'm like, oh, the great thing about this guy is he can just sort of try to dance, but they can slam into people and spill their drinks. And I thought it was sort of this kind of, it's going to be this subversive thing, and I was going to get people kind of riled up. So yeah, I go around spilling drinks, blah, 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 and then I come in, I'm like, all right, I'm going to get it. And of course, it's like this, oh, yay, spill drink on me again, yay. So this is something I kind of realized, oh, right, I'm an artist, so I'm not like an asshole. It's maybe I am, but you kind of can get away with these things.
And security, they took you out, or?
No, I mean, that's the thing, is that it's not necessarily subversive because I've been asked to do these things. So I'm not pretending that I'm this sort of,
And is the public aware? It takes.
With that one, I mean, there was curators who I've worked with who, when I was slumped against the pole, they're like, "Are you okay? Do I need to get you an ambulance?"
Oh.
So it depends on kind of what what the piece calls for. So that was kind of the first one. This is one I just did in August at Watermill. It was the end of doing all of these sort of so many benefit performances, and. Once again, they called me to do it, and it's Watermill, which I really believe in. They have the summer program, brings artists from all over the world. So I wanted to do it, but I was like, I had such benefit, this has been overkill. And so I thought, I wish I did have that shtick. I wish they could just roll me out, I do my thing, and they roll me back in. So I had this image in my head of actually them literally rolling out my head into the forest there, and then also, these benefits remind me so much of bad weddings. So me and my actually studio assistant and friend, we sang love songs to each other, but sort of in this monotone, like almost dead voice. So we did get kicked a lot and things like that. That's always a question people ask.
What, people walked over you?
People, I mean, they didn't, there's people who kind of walked around us, but, people get drunk at benefits.
And you got kicked accidentally.
Kicks out, yeah, no, it was not that sadomasochistic.
I've seen in the art fair here, people also walk through on top of a sculpture.
I know, yeah. Well, even it hurts more when it's a human. What are we? Should I go?
I don't know, Mr. Cameron?
Yes, Mr. Castoriano.
What? We want you to speak too. So.
Well, I want to speak as well.
Okay.
I didn't prepare like Ryan a presentation.
All right.
So I've been thinking, and what I was thinking was that I would talk about my relationship between art and food a little bit.
Good.
Because I think that that's important in terms of what you're doing. I was mentioning during the sound check that my earliest aesthetic memory is of my grandmother lemon meringue pie. She had a recipe for lemon meringue pie, which no one in the family, despite having the recipe, has ever been able to duplicate, since her death. And all we have of this memory is all we have of this pie is the memory of having eaten it. And I've been thinking a lot in New Orleans because of my work in a city like New Orleans, where cuisine is one of the supreme art forms within the culture. How much emphasis in a city like New Orleans we put on food and the eating experience. It's the only city I know of in the United States where most mealtime conversations center on what you had for dinner the night before, where you are having lunch later on, and where you're having dinner that night. So I began to think about this idea, first of all, of my grandmother's lemon meringue pie, which is the pursuit of an ideal of perfection.
Can you make it?
I can't.
You do not bake.
I'm talking to Raphael Castoriano, first of all, so of course I don't bake.
Oh, me neither. It's okay. I mean, Kreemart is not a catering company.
Oh, well, no, I mean, but on the same time,
we do get phone calls, people.
You do.
Yes. They want to modify maybe the Chase. They want another credit card,
Bank of America.
Yes.
But I do very much, as time goes on, I'm beginning to see the quest for the perfect artwork or the perfect art experience and the quest for kind of merging the sensation of taste and something that's gone.
Ephemeral. Yes, I love that. I mean,
exactly.
I'm fascinating. Kreemart comes from that ephemeral. So all of you were here. You got this free Tibet candy that Paula Peavy created in India. And there's a message. Some of you are aware or not aware of it, so you eat it. And it's an addition, so if you ate it all, sorry, it's gone.
But honestly, I came here because I'm a fan of this man's work and I'm a fan of what you do. And I thought, well, if I can just sit here between these two people, I'm feeling pretty good about life, actually.
Yes, but you're also, I feel that there is like a revolution happening. We're here at the center of this art fair, and we have you, we have him, we have Richard Tuttle, that I'm sure none of you ever imagined him creating a healthy cookie.
Yeah.
And that cookie that you will see later on has a lot to say. Not only, your grandmother evokes a souvenir, then the ingredients, and each artist, when they're given this medium, which is basically sugar or
flour
derivatives, flour, and there's also a lot of political statements inside these works of art that that Ryan McNamara did. Also, it was not Chase, but also Entmans. That's
Well, I have
all.
that later if you want to.
Oh, you have it there.
But if we
Oh.
run out, let's go
Okay.
on, and then if we have
All
time.
right.
afterwards.
So,
I agree with you that there's a revolution
Yeah.
going on, and I think it has to do with the idea of a masterpiece, and the rarity of the masterpiece, and how there can only be one or very, very few, and they must be guarded and protected, and only very few can possess them or get close to them. But now we seem to be establishing a new paradigm now where art can be great and wonderful and shared and be this kind of beautiful social experience, but we may not need the structure of a masterpiece. We may no longer need to have this imperishable, permanent
right, and I think
repository of culture.
yeah, also sectioned in such way. I think the Tate Modern, where Sir Nicholas Sirota revolutionized the way the public foresees art, and they don't need to be taken by hand by 1900 da, 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 da. And from there on, I agree with you, I agree with him. I don't know how to explain. Maybe in 5 years we'll have the whole formula like that, but I think the public is given also a task to decide whether they want to keep those candies, or you do not only, you make them aware of, you do your Prospect New Orleans, that you did it in a city that was totally destroyed and we all flew there. It was, political, social, art. We had to go there to help, culturally the economy. And then you make yourself, you make art of what's given to you. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I think we're heading. And there are new opportunities. We have a lot of the whole web story, Paddle 8, Artsy, Art Track, Art this, Art that, all virtual. Mm-hmm. And I like when we get together and we can feel something, and you can eat, and the same, you want people to fly to this beautiful city.
Actually, I want everyone here today to fly to New Orleans.
Oh, okay.
Next
So
week for Prospect 2.
Exactly, it's going on now.
It's going on
Yes,
until January
okay.
29th. But what if I can just further elaborate on my point, what I love about what both you two do is, if I tried to describe to you a Picasso painting, I can do everything in my power to describe it to you, but you really won't come away with much of a Picasso painting. But if I was telling somebody about this piece, for example, the other day, and I realized that in my telling of it, they didn't need to be there. I didn't even need the photograph anymore. Mm-hmm. Just the telling of the piece brings both the teller and the listener into such close proximity of the piece's meaning that it's almost as if they are there. Mm-hmm. It's the kind of a piece where the description of it comes quite close to being just as good as the thing itself, which maybe isn't something you've intended or not, where the telling of it, and then somebody who I tell about it can tell somebody else, and they can tell somebody else, and then eventually details all get lost, but still the essence of the artwork that you did this lives on. And I think it's very similar to what you're doing, Raphael, which is that there's something essential to Kreemart that doesn't actually require anybody to be there or to eat it or to participate. You can simply know about it and tell others about it, and you're a participant in the artwork. That's a new thing today, where I think that we're moving closer and closer to sharing, to finding a new way of sharing art.
But I think at the same time, we all from all over the world come here to a place to look at things that could be experienced either, perhaps just by telling, or a JPEG. It's a funny thing that you see these people who have flown maybe across the world to look at an iPad of an image that could have been emailed to them. So there's something about this. We are sort of a self-selecting group that even we do want to come together. There's a difference between going to the gallery website, seeing the show,
right,
and then there's actually going there. And there is something about that, even if it's just that you're in the room alone, and so you have this sense of sort of just being with this work and the piece, or you are there and it's crowded, and so that becomes your experience. And I think that there is that, even for the most traditional painting, there is that unknown that I think people as art lovers, we're drawn to, which is the actual experience of being there. And this is why things, these new endeavors such as Artsy and Paddle 8, I don't know if they really acknowledge that. I don't know if they acknowledge the fact that we actually do want to come together. Or we would be just in front of our computers, doing Google searches for Richard Tuttle.
Do we want to be together to look at the art, or do we want to be together because we want to be together?
No, I think that's fine. I think that's I think that's valid. I mean,
I don't know.
if people come and they don't even, they come and see a video of mine or something, and all I provide them is a bench to talk to their friend, that's great. I think they don't even pay attention to the video.
Well, I think that, I'm an art advisor, so it's not that I just created this. Kreemart was created out of, basically I was bored going to all these dinners, and I thought, like, why we don't do something exciting for these artists? Let's see what other talent they have, since we're all gathering together. And if you don't leave with it, at least I'll have a taste of his cake already. Twice I had. But
that sounded so dirty.
Too much information right there.
Yeah, well, everybody knows we had Marina Abramovic whole body devoured and Blondie at the Mocha Gala. And so that was also quite a task to provide the body of those two ladies. And one rock and roll and the other, art. Diva. So, yes. Yes.
Ryan, so I guess what you were trying to say, or something that intrigued me about what you just said, is art being something that can help serve or resolve the crisis of the commons.
Of the commons.
Yeah, and the lack of commons. So the commons being a place when America was first starting to be the town commons.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's really interesting as all of these worlds grow so much. I'm sort of jealous. Oh my gosh, sorry. Right. Okay. So the young woman in the front row just asked if what I'm talking about is sort of this problem of having a lack of a commons, being the town square, something like that. I think of these days, in the 60s and 70s when I read about these collaborations between choreographers like Merce Cunningham and pretty much every visual artist working at the time. And I just realized they were talking to each other because they were the ones around. They were the ones who were interested in ideas. And now that these worlds have grown so large, that the dance world has 50 worlds within it, and the art world has 50 worlds within it. And so, in a way, I think that just art in general allows sort of people that at least, sure, people come to events because they like champagne and things like that, but I hope that they are people, you can get champagne lots of places. I'm hoping that they have another drive, that they do want to come together with someone who's at least thinking about something larger than their glass of free champagne.
Yes, or the people that are going to be at parties.
Right. So, but what I hope to do with, I don't know, have we seen any that have like dancers in it, but I actually hope just by working with people in different worlds, like dancers and things like that, well, they bring their friends. And so then we actually have, I did a piece that had 25 visual artists performing and 25 dancers and choreographers, and it was literally just because I thought, well, they'll all come together, they'll bring their friends, and so it becomes a common space for people who are interested in ideas that aren't talking to each other now in a way that people maybe were talking in the 60s and 70s, just because it was smaller.
I think do we have to move? He'd show how long we have. I don't know.
I see a question in the back row back
okay.
there.
What?
A background.
Hello, my name's Claire Schneider. I'm an independent curator. Would you just step back for a minute and give us a little bit more background about Kreemart and how it started? And it's a salon. You're doing parties about food.
I'm not going to give you my age. That's for
That's
sure.
fine.
But
we get it. We're all bored. We want to go to parties, but just maybe a little bit more background about how it.
more background. Kreemart was created. The first artist it was for the Tate Modern, the American patrons. In 2007, 6, something like that, we had Teresita Fernandez, Vic Muniz, and Gada Amer with Reza Farkunde. And from that evening, Kreemart was created. I mean, I pushed it for them to do this, so I called each of these artists, and Gada Amer created a video out of this called the Indigestible Desert, where the public smashed the head of Bush and Blair, and they ate their body like scavengers. And Teresita Fernandez did this fantastic replica of a house, all mirrored. I do not recall the architect name now. And Vic Muniz made a huge cake, and you would feel like a baby, you know, coming in and seeing this humongous cake with chocolate. And that's how it went. We also, you know, we do Kreemart Salon, where we talk about it, because I wanted people to understand that the most difficult is to convey that we are not a catering company, you know, we are, and that we, you know, it's not that all the actions of these artists are registered, and you know, they also go and talk about their experience, and I don't know, from here to eternity. You can log in at Kreemart.com. We have videos of things, and we'll see. I mean, you gave out some Entenmann cake.
Right. Yeah, let's see. I don't know where it is. All right, we'll go through. Oh, that's another thing I did. That's something I did that. Okay, so I had another project with, actually just on Tuesday, in which I worked with 100 Entenmann's cakes, which, you know, are the kind of cakes you can buy at Walgreens. And so I used these are my favorite Entenmann's cakes, but they also happen to kind of look like gold bars to me. So what I did is I made, during the event, I actually sprayed, there's this edible airbrush spray that you can spray onto any food. And so I was spraying these 99 of these 100 gold. Then within that, sort of mixed in, I did one cake that was actually gold leaf. So one was worth, you know, 99 were worth $3, and the other was worth hundreds of dollars. And that was just sort of put out there randomly. I actually have no idea who ended up getting that one. I just sort of liked the, you know, one, I just liked that, you know, this was something we gave away, and so they had to put it in their, they had to put the cake in the box, and I'd been spraying, and I gave it to them, and it was covered with, you know, gross stuff on the outside of the box, and it was sort of this amazing image of these, you know, people shoving these $3 cakes, you know, 5 of them in their Birkin bags or something. So I really loved that image. But I just kind of loved the randomness of, you know, it's this alchemy of changing this, you know, what I think is a delicious cake that also, they do also kind of, they last forever. That's sort of the revolutionary thing about them. Post-World War II, they were the first cake that would just, you didn't have to refrigerate. So I kind of like that relationship to gold right now. Sort of this, you know, feeling that gold is forever. And this is the place where we're gonna, you know, it's stable as our Entenmann's cakes.
Okay, we're going to see a 3 minutes and a half video of this is what happened November 29. November. That's Regina Silveira, Brazilian artist, and this is an action she did in 1997 called Biscoito Arte. And the photographs you saw, they're actual unique photographs, and they're here at Luciana Brito stand. She's selling that, and these were editions. So a lot of people were aware or not. This is Angel Otero. It's called Pissing Contest. White and black chocolate served on a host. The hosts were the editions. There you can see. And there's a lot of also gender and political statements. Black and the white chocolate nobody wants. They all go to the black. Then that's the candies. Take as many as you wish. Free Tibet candies. And actually a guest said that imagine if each guest that ate a free Tibet candy in Tibet, they would be freed. A little bell would ring and somebody would be freed. And so also, there's the greediness and, how many you can take, and there the hand pouring in.
Your swifter memory records words. A different question. These girls, the correct time, the ones.
Manuel Gonzalez reading poetry by Richard Tuttle. Those are the healthy cookies. So actually all the wrapping and the napkin had printed a souvenir from Richard.
Many children, I heard.
That's Amsel Riley, Glow, Maximum Glow. So the cake was glowing in the dark, and it was a very weird experience, and you didn't know if you could eat it or not. It doesn't look, or you were, going to be, how do you say, poisoned?
How do you say poisoned?
Because it had so much glow. So I guess she's like really there hesitating. Oh, and then we have this artist praying, and his gold Entenmann. Gold is very expensive today, so that lady or guy that stole your piece, I can't
steal it. They were supposed to take it.
Stole it. Probably you're sitting here. No, there. Don't copy his debit card. And that's, I guess, the swimming pool. And those are the brands. Kreemart is a brand too. And now we have a little extra.
What?
Are you happy?
I was the first time I saw the cake.
It's my debit card. Wow.
That's
Great. Well, Raphael, what I love about this and about the video and kind of what you're doing is, and maybe it's redundant to put this out there, but I do think what's fascinating in the context of Art Basel about this whole question is you have never stated or tried to define what you're doing as art, nor have you said it's not art. So we're dealing with this situation of deliberate, I believe intentional ambiguity about the process and the meaning of what you're doing. And I happen to love that positioning right now, because so much of art history that I know of has to do with firmly taking a position that's just outside the realm of what's permissible in art, and saying, I am taking this non-art thing and saying, this is art now. And then once you take that position, you wait for the boundaries to shift and then incorporate you. And it seems to me that your sensitivity towards this process is so acute and developed that you've decided that the question of, is this art? Does this belong in art? Is it not art? Is no longer relevant. It's no longer valid. So with that kind of hovering in the air, it makes us think about all the other stuff that's associated with what you're doing without ever having to ask ourselves, although I know some people in the room are saying, what does this have to do with contemporary art at all? And it's the very fact that you're not asking that question that makes it so interesting to me. I don't know if that states it the way you intend.
That's exactly what I intend. It's true. Thank you, Dan. It's true.
Whoa.
Any questions?
My name is Jean Marie Waslick, but I just had a thought about the 99%. Obviously, with Occupy Wall Street, you've got 99% of your cakes, or the 99%, and the 1% was your gold cake. Did you think of that, or is that just a
I mean, that was obviously a part of it. I mean, I wanted it to be sort of random. You know, that's why I didn't, give that cake to a special person. I just like the idea that, it can be very random who gets the $300 cake and who gets the $3 cake.
Let them eat cake.
Yeah. Anyone else? All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you, everybody.